Okay, so today on Josh's recording, I'm going to talk about some modifications I did to this Marantz amp here. So when I got this amp, I noticed it was getting really, really hot. Now I couldn't do that much about that. I mean, it's an amp, it gets hot, but I noticed these two enormous heat sinks in here, one for each channel, but they're both still getting very, very hot. This one's getting hotter. So. And also, there's a chip here that kept getting so hot it almost smoked. You know, it's actually pretty warm even with that heatsink I put on it. But anyway, I noticed that this chip here was getting pretty hot. This one right there. So I screwed a heatsink. I'm not sure if you can see that, but if you look right there, I put a heatsink on top of that, and that's actually pretty warm right now. And the thing itself is actually not as hot. So, for that purpose, this thing here gets its own little heatsink, and this part right here, if this gets too hot, it can ground to that too. This chip over here, I think it's for standby purposes, but I think it does something. I think it powers like the relays or something. It was getting very hot. You can even see it like almost burning the board. If you actually look at the cover for the amp itself, right where that chip is, right there, you can actually see a dark mark on the cover itself. So you can tell that that chip is getting way too hot. I'm not sure if you can see the burn marks that are actually on the board. In fact, no, you can't, because that one heatsink is blocking it the way I have the camera set up. So this that chip right there, I put a heatsink on that, and I got out of a power supply, and that's a lot cooler. This one came out of a pretty powerful Dell power supply that unfortunately had too many blown capacitors. I didn't feel like replacing. So this was I had it running for a day, just on, receiving nothing, and just sitting there, because it got pretty hot when I was doing that. These things too right here are actually not that hot. This one's not very hot at all. This one's a little warm. They're unloaded, except one of them is actually connected to this speaker here, which I'm trying to sell. It's kind of annoying though, because it's like worth so much, and I can't get anyone that's actually acknowledging that it's worth so much. I feel that it's warm, very warm actually. I don't think it's gonna need any more, but I mean, saying that it was not even had a heatsink on there in the first place. Now I don't want to tear this machine down, but if I could, I'd also put heatsinks on all the little chips that are on that don't have any heatsinks on the board, because as you probably know, I like things cool. So it kind of annoys me when a company that is as good and popular as Marantz would make us slip up like that. But anyway, this overall is a great amp, but things like that kind of get me annoyed. So this one actually has its own standby circuit. It was a later 80s model, so that's interesting. It has a standby circuit, that's a standby power supply, standby relay, it's a fuse, and a little bit of circuit there, which is kind of amazing for a 80s amp. Most of them are like my Fisher, which only has a power button, which cuts power completely from the amplifier, or gives the amplifier power. So that's interesting. But anyway, there's a little bit of heat generating from the board, especially where those relays there are. But a lot of heat's being generated right from that chip. I'm not really sure what that chip does, but it sure does something, because this little heatsink I hooked up for is actually getting quite warm. This one's getting very warm. It's kind of nervous that even that heatsink might not be enough, but the machine lasted long enough with no heatsink at all on that chip, so I'm pretty sure that is fine. But overall, it's a great amp. It puts out 100 watts per channel, but I'm pretty sure I could take it up to 150 if I wanted. Yeah, it's Marantz. It's a Marantz, kind of mid-range Marantz model, but still pretty good, nevertheless. Thank you for watching. This has been Josh's Recordings.
Yeah. Can't